everyone, welcome to Basic Draping for Fashion Design. My name is Nino Villa and I'm your instructor. If you've taken any of my other courses in fashion design like pattern making and sketching and collection development, then you know that I was an instructor at FIDM, F-I-D-M, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in Los Angeles. This is a basic draping course. What is draping? Well, draping for fashion design is the process of positioning and pinning fabric onto a dress form to develop the structure of a garment design. After draping, the fabric is removed from the dress form and used to create the pattern for the garment. Now, that is the technical definition of draping. But I personally think that draping is a lot more than that. See, when you're draping, you are like a sculptor. You are like an artist. You are creating a new design. You can use draping as a source of inspiration. For example, go to your local fabric store, buy 2 yards of fabric that you really like. Take it home and use draping as a tool, as a technique to create new designs. Draping can be fun, and it should be fun. It should be playful and inspiring. Now, you will need a dress form, obviously. These dress forms are not cheap. They cost anywhere from a few $100s to $1,000 and maybe more. You can find a used one online, so do some research. And they come in different sizes. They come in size 4, size 6, size 8. If you can find a 4 or 6 or an 8 size, that would be ideal. Also, you will need pins, so you can pin the fabric onto the form. You will need scissors and a pencil and a ruler. This is a clear see-through plastic ruler. And muslin. What is muslin? Muslin is a raw, unprocessed cotton fabric. It's very inexpensive. It is used to drape, and then once the pattern is completed, the drape is then thrown away. You also will need dotted paper. Dotted paper looks like this. Dotted paper is used to make patterns. If you want to learn about pattern making, watch my other course on basic pattern making. And in fact, I suggest you do so and enroll in a pattern making class, because draping and pattern making, they go hand in hand. They work together, as you will see. So, for some of you, this is the first time that you are actually draping. So, as a way to get your feet wet, so to speak, take some fabric, put on some music, and just have fun with it. Have fun, be creative, and enjoy the process. Maybe something like this. Well, listen, before we get to the fancy stuff, we have to get some basic fundamental principles in draping. It's very important to get the foundation really solid, right? It's like building a house. You got to get the foundations really solid before you can get into fancy stuff. So in this course, we'll cover the basic bodice, front and back, the basic skirt, a simple dress or variations of a dress. We'll do a circle skirt. So those are the basic ideas. I'll throw in a few extra things here and there, but this is a basic draping course that's important to solidify before you move on to the fancy stuff. Okay, so let's get right to it. In this class, I'm going to show you how to drape a bodice. And I'll do two variations. I will do a 2-dart bodice and I will also give you a demo on one dart bodice. Then I'll show you how to take all this information from the drape, well, the cross markings and pencil marks, and transfer the information to dotted paper so that you will have a real pattern that you can use to cut real fabric, okay? Before we get started with the draping part, let's get familiar with some of the terminology that we use while we are draping. This is the center front. This is the princess seam or princess line. This is the apex. The center of the bust is known as the apex, right there. Shoulder seam, this is your side seam. And as far as the waistline is concerned, when we mark the waistline, we use the bottom of the tape. Also, let's do a quick recap on grain lines. If this is our roll of fabric or muslin, the edge of the fabric is known as the selvage. Selvage here and here. The grain line parallel to the selvage is known as the length grain. And also we have the cross grain and we have bias, 45-degree angle, all right? We're gonna start with a piece of muslin, 18 inches across and 24 inches in length. And the length, when I say length, I mean this is the selvage. This is the edge of the fabric, of the muslin. And we always want to drape where the edge of the fabric, the selvage, is parallel to center front. In other words, you want to drape like this, not like that. Okay, next we start by drawing a grain line 1 inch away from the edge, 1 inch away from the selvage. We draw a 1 inch grain line, and then we divide the muslin in half and draw a cross grain perpendicular to center front. Now, most students, well, not most, but some students make the mistake of starting by draping like this. They place the muslin like this, and then what happens is you have no fabric to complete this section. That's why we have a cross grain, which tells us that this cross grain must come across the bust level, the apex level. So the cross grain crosses the apex, center front is pinned onto the center front, and you want to put the pins at a certain angle. You want to put the pins at this angle because watch what happens if you do it this way. Guess what? This comes undone. You see that? So you don't want to do that. You want to put your pin at a certain angle, and the angle is like that, in this direction here. Now, this is the tricky part here. Be careful how you cut this. You don't want to go straight across this way. What you want to do is you go up about 1 inch or so from the neckline, go about 1 inch and cut a little bit, and then go upward like this. So only this piece gets cut off. See that? And then slowly you clip the neckline so that the fabric falls nicely onto the bodice. We'll put a pin right there, like that. Okay, pin. And basically now what happens is that all this fabric, this becomes one dart, the waistline dart, and this excess fabric becomes the shoulder dart. So what you want to do is you want to smooth the muslin until you come to the princess seam, and you put a little pin, and you put a little cross mark. Now I'm using a Sharpie, but you should use a pencil. Always use a sharp pencil. Put a little cross mark right there, and then smooth all this fabric, right? So that, watch this, all this excess fabric nice and smooth. Here's my old cross mark from the princess seam. You're gonna take all this fabric here, smooth it up like this, and then fold this under like that. And you can see how we're creating our first dart. Here is our side seam. we'll put pins on the side seam. Okay, and now all this excess fabric here will become our dart. How do we do that? Again, we smooth the muslin on the waistline until we come to, again, the princess line or the princess seam, and put a little pin where that is right there. And we'll put a little cross mark. And then all this excess fabric will be folded under to create the dart. So watch this. I'm going to take this fabric, I'm going to crease it here, smooth, and fold it under. Now what happens, notice there's some tension, there's some pulling here. So we want to eliminate that. So we take our scissors and we slash. See all this tension right here? You want to eliminate that. And by slashing to the waistline, see, there's the tension. It's gone, it's nice and smooth and flat. And you might want to do another one right next to it. And maybe even a third one, like that. Any excess fabric below the waist, you can go ahead and trim it off. Trim it away. I might as well mark using the bottom of the tape. The bottom of the tape is the waistline. We're going to mark our waistline. We're going to mark our side seam. You can feel it with your fingers. You can mark your side seam and the armhole. And we're going to mark our neckline. And where the neckline meets the shoulder. And where the shoulder meets the armhole. And also let's mark our apex. And a mark where the two fabrics meet. Okay, so that basically you end up with these two cross marks. So we're going to mark where these two fabrics cross over, where they meet, so that if you remove the pins, you will notice you have this markings right here. We can trim the extra fabric here on the side. We don't need all this fabric. We can trim all this away. Okay, in the next class, I'm going to show you how to take all this information, all these cross marks and pencil marks, and transfer them to dotted paper and make a nice clean pattern out of it, okay? So if this video resonated with you, I encourage you to enroll in the full course on Fashion Premier Academy. I'll put the link in the description below, and I will see you in class. Now.